Anatomy of suprarenal glands. They are two endocrine glands, each one lies anterosuperior to the upper pole of the corresponding kidney, opposite the vertebral end of the 11th intercostal space and the 12th rib, and they overlap the medial border of the kidney. Each gland is formed of outer cortex and inner medulla. The right gland is pyramidal in shape, having apex and base, three borders, anterior, medial, and lateral borders, and two surfaces, anterior and posterior, while the left gland is larger than the right and it's semilunar in shape, having two ends, superior and inferior ends, two borders, medial convex and lateral concave borders, and two surfaces, anterior and posterior. Each gland is enclosed within the renal fascia. Each one is separated from the corresponding kidney by a fibrous tissue septum. Medially, each gland is related to celiac ganglion, and posteriorly, they are both related to diaphragm. But each gland is different when it comes to its anterior relations, as the right gland is related anteriorly to inferior vena cava and the right lobe of liver. Let's add the digestive system and the liver, the right lobe of liver. As we can see, the right lobe of liver is situated anterior to it, while the left gland is related to stomach. And to the pancreas and splenic artery. Its arterial supply. There are three suprarenal arteries supplying each gland. The superior suprarenal artery, which comes from inferior phrenic artery, and the middle suprarenal artery, which comes from the aorta itself, and the inferior suprarenal artery, which is from the renal artery. Venous drainage. There is single vein draining each gland. The right adrenal vein drains into the inferior vena cava directly, while the left adrenal vein drains into the left renal vein. Lymphatic drainage. They both drain into the para-aortic lymph nodes. They are supplied by celiac and renal nerve plexuses. Development of the suprarenal glands and its congenital anomalies. The adrenal gland consists of outer cortex and inner medulla, as during the 5th week, mesothelial cells of the coelomic epithelium on either side of mesentery of the gut proliferate to form the fetal cortex. Then a second layer of cells develop from the coelomic mesothelium and surround the fetal cortex to form the permanent cortex. The fetal cortex regresses rapidly except its outer layer, which differentiates into zona reticularis, while the permanent cortex differentiates into zona glomerulosa and zona fasciculata. We will know them later when discussing its histology. Note that zona glomerulosa and zona fasciculata are present at birth, while zona reticularis not recognizable until the end of 3rd year. Let's move to suprarenal medulla. This photo shows the development of CNS. This is the neural crest, and those are chromaffin cells that are derived from the neural crest. They will migrate to enter the medial aspect of the fetal cortex and form the suprarenal medulla. So the adrenal medulla is ectodermal in origin. Its congenital anomalies. There are various anomalies that can happen, as adrenal cortical tissue on ectopic sites. It can develop deep to the capsule of the kidney, or it can fuse to the liver or kidneys. Another congenital anomaly of adrenal gland is congenital hyperplasia of cortex. In male, it will lead to early development of secondary sexual characters called adrenogenital syndrome, while in females it can lead to enlargement of clitoris and being mistaken for male. called pseudohermaphroditism. Histology of suprarenal glands. As we know, they are two endocrine glands in contact with the upper border of both kidneys. And if we take a cross-section, we will find that it's formed of outer cortex and inner medulla. The adrenal cortex is yellow in color because its cells produce steroids, so these cells have numerous number of lipid droplets. And it's mesodermal in origin. It contributes from 80 to 90% of adrenal gland, while the adrenal medulla is reddish-brown in color because it has a numerous number of blood vessels. And it's different in its origin, as the neuroectoderm gives rise to it and it acts as a modified sympathetic ganglia. The histologic structure of adrenal gland is formed from stroma and parenchyma. Its stroma consists of connective tissue capsule that surrounds the gland, and this connective tissue capsule comes out of it this septa or trapeculae, and there is a background of reticular fibers which can be stained with silver stain. Let's move to its parenchyma, which is formed from group of cells which found in cortex and medulla. Regarding the cortex, we will find three zones. The first zone found directly underneath the capsule, called zona glomerularis. The second one, this large zone, called zona fasciculata. And the third one, called zona reticularis. Underneath these three zones, it's the medulla with its cells. Let's start first with the adrenal cortex and see what are the function of these cells. Roughly, they are all steroid-secreting cells. The zona glomerulosa secrete mineralocorticoids, mainly aldosterone. Then zona fasciculata, which secrete glucocorticoids that regulate lipid, protein, and carbohydrate metabolism, and also have an anti-inflammatory and immunosuppressive action. Zona reticularis, this zone secretes androgens, which contribute in the development of axillary and pubic hair in females, while in males, its role is made by testosterone. The electron microscope of these cells is of steroid-secreting cells criteria, which means it will have extensive smooth endoplasmic reticulum, mitochondria with tubular cristae, and lipid droplets. Note that there are more lipid droplets found in zona fasciculata, which indicates that this zone of cells produce and secrete more hormones than the other two zones. Let's start with the first zone that we have, which is the zona glomerulosa. It's called glomerulosa as its cells looks like a glomus. This zone is found directly under the capsule. It contributes about 15% of the cortex thickness. Its cells are closely packed arched clusters surrounded by fenestrated blood capillaries. By electron microscope, they are columnar cells with basal rounded nuclei and pale cytoplasm. While by electron microscope, it has the criteria of steroid-secreting cells, but with few lipid droplets. The next zone is the zona fasciculata. Fasciculata means that the cells are packed together as bundles. It's the middle layer and the widest one. The cells are arranged in long straight cords of 1 to 2 cell thick, separated by sinusoidal capillaries. By electron microscope, they are polyhedral cells, and their nuclei are pale as these cells are highly active cells. The cytoplasm is acidophilic due to the presence of smooth endoplasmic reticulum and mitochondria. Also, there are vacuoles due to the presence of lipid droplets, so they are called spongy sites. By electron microscope, it has the criteria of steroid-secreting cells, but with many lipid droplets. Zona reticularis. It's the inner layer, contributes about 7% of the thickness. Cells are arranged in irregular cords, hence the name reticularis. enclosing sinusoidal capillaries. By light microscope, cells are polyhedral with central rounded nuclei and acidophilic cytoplasm. But note that there are dark cells which have dark cytoplasm and pycnotic nuclei. And there are also lipofuscin pigment, this yellow pigment, which is the remnant of undigested lipid inside the lysosome. By electron microscope, it has also the criteria of steroid-secreting cells, but with few lipid proteins. Let's move to the adrenal medulla. The cells of adrenal medulla secrete catecholamines, the hormones of fight or flight. What are the cells of adrenal medulla? There are two types of cells. The first one is chromaffin cells. It's called chromaffin as these cells give positive reaction with chromium salt stain. They are modified sympathetic neurons that have lost their processes and became secretory cells. They are polyhedral cells arranged in branching cords separated by blood sinusoids, having basophilic cytoplasm and central pale nuclei. By electron microscope, they are polypeptide secreting cells having some rough endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, and secretory granules that stores adrenaline and noradrenaline. The second type of cells are the sympathetic ganglion cells. They are stellate nerve cells scattered between chromaffin cells to stimulate their secretory activity. They are innervated by preganglionic sympathetic nerve fibers.